This is Sarnia Lambton Daily for Monday, June 1st. Good evening, I'm Terry Doyle. It was a quiet weekend in Sarnia Lambton for new cases of COVID-19, but unfortunately, there is another death to report. The latest victim of coronavirus was a resident of Vision Nursing Home who died in hospital. This brings the number of Vision residents who have passed away to 8. Last week, all COVID-19 positive residents of Vision Nursing Home were located to Blue Water Health. It is hoped this move will take the virus out of the home itself, allowing it to take care of the remaining residents and get back on their feet. The home has been quite short-staffed, including dealing with 24 staff members who have tested positive for the virus. Overall, the total number of COVID-19 patients diagnosed in Sarnia Lambton is 263. That number has not moved since Saturday. 201 people are considered recovered from the virus, bringing the total number of active cases to 39. Sarnia City Council met today to take care of some rezoning business and financial matters around the pandemic. The city approved rezoning at the plaza along London Road and Pontiac Drive. A new residential complex is planned for the location. The city also voted to reinstate transit fares for city buses, but at half the price, $1.50 per fare, with no transfers being issued. Things also got a little heated during the meeting when discussing the city's relationship with Lambton County. County Councillor Dave Boushey suggested withholding $10 million of property taxes that come from city residents into the county coffers. While the motion was defeated, some councillors were calling for changes in the city-county relationship.
I completely agree with Councillor Boushey that it is critical that our relationship with the county be re-examined. The agreement that we are operating under was struck 30 years ago and times have changed. We need to ensure that the city is getting the best representation at the county level. And quite frankly, I believe that in the past that some of our county representation, quite frankly, has been weak. I believe that there are issues that need to be addressed in our relationship with the county, and I'd like to highlight the following. Even though the city of Sarnia contributes almost half of the county total budget, we have only enjoyed the leadership of the warden position twice in 30 years. The Municipal Act says the warden position can be elected directly by the people. Maybe we need to look into that option. Again, maybe we need to look at other government models, perhaps a regional municipality. I feel like often Sarnia's needs are sometimes not respected.
I don't think the city-county relationship has been as dismal in all the time that I've been there. And it's really a lack of respect for the urban area, and I include Point Everett into that. And that's been, I won't go into detail now, but that's been one of the issues we've struggled with throughout the pandemic and dealing with public health. And I think where I'm going on this is that later this year, I hope that we can have a discussion as a council. And I think we also need to have an in-depth financial analysis done on that relationship and the costs of that relationship and the benefits of that relationship. I think once we have that, we can have I guess call it an adult discussion about that relationship.
In other news tonight, pictures have been flooding in from all over, especially the United States, of protests and violence as people demand racial equality and an end to police brutality in America. Here in Sarnia, the issue of racial equality was raised during a downtown rally. Representatives holding up signs that included Black Lives Matter converged on Sarnia City Hall today. Their message was that the issue is not limited to the United States and that people need to stand together across all regions and cultures to promote the cause of racial equality. With more on this topic, let's bring in local minister Adam Kilner. And Adam, certainly, well, first of all, let's just ask right off the bat, how are you?
I am tired. I am weary, but I do also have a fire being set in my spirit about what possibilities we have going forward. But I, along with a number of colleagues from across this country, particularly Black colleagues and friends, are exhausted. We've been, most of us, working around the clock for the last few days trying to address what's going on in our culture and across our continent.
And I know you mentioned that in an email when we set this up as well, that it has been very busy talking to many people without, some conversations probably at this moment, you can't divulge everything said because people are having personal conversations, but what is the tone? What are sort of the things being said right now?
So I guess there's tremendous exhaustion. People who have family members and friends in in many of the cities where these demonstrations are taking place. And so it's not just being tired because of the issue. It's also a tired because we are actively caring for other people who are in the midst of the storm, as they say. So there's definitely there's definitely an exhaustion that isn't just a physical ailment. It's a spiritual, emotional conditioning that you feel in your spirit, that, even folks who are trying to spend time educating people are getting to that point where they just need to say, I can't do this at present and still be my best self. I need you to do some of the work yourself. And just around education, around colonial pasts, some of the historical stuff that has led us into the moment that we're in right now. This isn't just an issue from our perspective of the last 5 or 10 years. This is a whole story that has been unfolding in terms of Western culture, and there's also kind of connections to some of the political things that are going on in our climate, in this time as well. Folks are just exhausted, and I think exhaustion is probably the best word to talk about how people are both feeling, but also what the mood is.
And as you said, this isn't a new thing, but have the events of the last week maybe been a trigger for some people in terms of mental health? We've talked throughout the pandemic about mental health, and I have to think that that's sometimes, when you talk about people just having conversations, looking out for each other, because I would think this can be a trigger.
Absolutely, I think you're absolutely right. The issues, there are a whole bunch of issues coming together all at the same time that I think, and actually Trevor Noah does a really great piece on this. A couple days ago, he did a piece on this. But we've all been cooped up in our homes, isolated from the rest of the world for pushing, I think we're at 3.5 months now, at least here in Ontario. And, that's definitely affected our mental health, and even how we come to the table in terms of trying to address issues that are trigger issues for some of us. I'm a Black man, therefore issues about Blackness are certainly going to be significant in a way that isn't necessarily the same thing for a white person or a person who's not, who doesn't have that identity. So you couple that with a few weeks of different different murders that we see, and the videos are on the internet, and it's upsetting, and it's hard to come to the table with a particular message that kind of draws humanity back together when we're feeling so desperate at this moment.
For people watching, they see some things going on, and many things going on in the United States, and maybe someone would sit here watching us today and say, well, that's over there. I'm pretty confident saying, no, these issues are not just limited to the United States.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, in our own community, Sarnia Lambton, we do have multiple layers of interactions between people of different races and ethnicities. We also have different layers of what the story of those peoples are. So the story of Indigenous peoples is tied in some ways with the colonial history around Blacks in Canada and the United States, but they are still different histories. But they are intertwined in the fact that we occupy some of the same spaces. At the same time, I'll tell you this, as a former election candidate, knocking on doors, you start noticing what people have at their houses. Some houses, with Confederate flags either in a window or hanging from a mailbox. And as a Black person, that actually is extremely disorienting, uncomfortable, and it actually puts me at high alert that this is not a safe place or a healthy place, to be. Period. So, like these pieces, if the symbol exists here, certainly the sentiments must also exist here, and you come across that in various ways.
Adam, what did you face running? You mentioned being a candidate in Sarnia Lambton. You ran into those symbols. In general, what did you run into? Being a candidate, were there challenges where you had to maybe try and even educate people because they didn't greet you maybe the same way they would have greeted a white candidate?
You know what? It's really difficult to tell. I think the general takeaway from the election experience was that we have a really kind-hearted and generous community. And even as we've watched the news unfold and standing for a few minutes out at City Hall where there's a current demonstration, seeing the number of cars go by that are honking horns in support, Black folk are just as human as everybody else, and that when they suffer, we all suffer. That sentiment still exists, and I think it's a predominant sentiment where we live. I didn't necessarily come across anybody who explicitly said anything peculiar or that struck me as racist during the election, but coming across the symbols definitely led me to, should I really be knocking on this door?
Adam, as we move forward, our audience is Sarnia Lambton here. We saw indeed the group that was together today at City Hall. I'm sure there'll be more to come. People watching us, what can someone do watching this show right now to help when it comes to equality?
So that's a really great question. It really excites me because everybody wants to do something. Everybody wants to fix the problem. And what excites me about that is that that's an outward acknowledgement that we know something's not right. And I keep saying to people, one thing I keep saying to people, especially my white friends who are struggling to find words, and I just say the place that you can start. You don't have to have eloquent statements or anything like that. We got folks who are talking for the Black community who are very eloquent, who know the history, who can speak to that. But we just need allies. We need people to say, if all you can do is stand up and say, I support racial equality, I support racial justice, simple phrases like that, and say it, tell your friends, I support racial equality, I support racial justice. Start with those things that you can do. You don't have, yes, show up at the rally, because we need allies. We need allies, and we need those people driving their cars by those rallies, honking the horns. Because we are all in this together. I am a strong advocate for racial unity. I believe that we all need to come together and that we're stronger together. And if all you can do, in your community is say, I stand for racial equality, that's a start. That's a starting place. And it's a powerful one.
What have you seen in these last few days locally in terms of various groups coming together and all aspects of the community, not just various groups, all aspects of the community coming together to support one another?
I just have been extremely, all I can say, I guess, to that is just because lockdown's going on, at the same time. But what I can say is my phone's been ringing off the hook. I've been receiving text messages like crazy. I've received all sorts of interaction over platforms like Facebook and Instagram, and these are interactions that are happening not only just locally, but all across the province and even across this country. People just saying, I support racial equality. I stand with you, Adam. And And it's also been a powerful thing to get connected with other Black folks in this city that I don't know, that I've never come across before, or who haven't come across me. It's been really great because it gives us the ability to start sharing ideas about how we can work together, to help offer educational opportunity to our community, to also help bring allies closer together. And what we have seen in this community is that there are definitely allies out here. I serve a church. I do have many members who've explicitly said, this is really important to us. It is really important that we stand side by side during this what feels like a crisis. Some have been calling it the virus of racism. And so it's been absolutely incredible. We have seen so much support from Sarnians. I'm certain there are things going on outside of my knowledge that are happening in this community, but the last couple of things have been one being a demonstration at City Hall. Another one that's going to happen on June 13th is another demonstration. I can't remember the location. I believe it might be the police station. This is to work towards that common dream that we are all humans together, and we need to celebrate our humanity, work out the places where our souls need to be worked out in terms of some of the ills that face humanity. Let's not denigrate my brother or sister. Let's say there's some soul work that needs to be done so that we can see the humanity in each other. And I have been really excited and encouraged by all of the messages and the demonstrations, the horn honking that I've seen in this community. It's a challenging time, to be trying to have rallies in the middle of a state of emergency. So I think that's why there's also a little bit of limitation around what I'm aware of.
Well, Adam, that's why we wanted to, or among the reasons why we wanted to give you a platform here, because it's certainly an important issue, and anything we can do to help amplify this and get the word out. And I know I will say, and on behalf of your TV, certainly everyone here, we stand for racial equality, and anything we can do to get the message out, we're glad to do it. And we appreciate you giving us a few minutes. We know it's a very busy time there as well, but glad to work with you here today.
Well, thank you so much for this opportunity, Terry, and I appreciate your TV and the opportunity to share my story, and also the statement that you stand for racial equality. It seems very strange that we have to be kind of having these demonstrations in 2020, thinking, it's more than 50 years ago that Martin Luther King died. And we know how much he changed the spirit of this entire continent. So thank you very much for the platform, and I appreciate this opportunity.
Adam, thank you. Stay well, stay safe, and we'll talk to you again soon.
God bless.
There's Adam Kilner joining us here. Stay tuned. You're watching Sarnia Lambton Daily on your TV. Welcome back to Sarnia Lambton Daily. Many watched on Saturday as NASA launched astronauts into space from Florida for the first time in 9 years. The SpaceX capsule went into orbit and then docked with the International Space Station. Dr. David Williams is no stranger to space. The retired astronaut says it is quite a historic moment for NASA and spaceflight.
So over the past 10 years, NASA and the international partners have utilized the Russian space program, the Soyuz spacecraft, to send astronauts to the International Space Station. The last time we launched astronauts to the space station from Kennedy Space Center in Florida was roughly 10 years ago. So this is historic in the sense that we're now bringing launch capability back to NASA, back to the United States, once again launching crews from Florida to go to the space station. But more importantly, it's that unique partnership between a private sector company and NASA to build a launch capability to take humans in space. So this is not only the dawn of a new era of space exploration, it's the dawn of new capability that one day we'll see private sector technology used to take everyone into space, and that's going to be very exciting.
The success of this launch will pave the way for further exploration in space. Williams says it's the beginning of an exciting time.
Well, there's no question that the technology we're looking at today is technology to enable us to go farther in space and to stay longer. If you look at the capsule and you compare it to the capsule that was used in the Apollo program to send the astronauts to the moon, it looks very, very similar. Of course, what we're looking at today is a much more modern, technologically enhanced version, but fundamentally we're transitioning from the space shuttle, a winged spacecraft, into the use of a ballistic capsule that we can use to send astronauts to the space station, back to the moon, or potentially in the future on to Mars.
Williams went to the International Space Station in 2007 and completed 3 spacewalks during that mission. He says it will be interesting to see changes that have been made since his time in space.
Just looking at the spacesuit, you know, where they're getting into their suits, the suit room is the same one we used, but on the one hand, it's similar. On the other hand, everything is different. It's really exciting seeing the evolution of technology that's going to be used to take humans farther into space.
Stay tuned. You are watching Sarnia Lambton Daily on your TV. Recapping our top story tonight, the city of Sarnia is reinstating transit fares beginning June 15th at half the normal price. The city also approved rezoning to allow for a new residential complex to be built at the plaza located on London Road and Pontiac Drive in Sarnia. Things got a little heated during the City Council meeting today as well, as councillors called into question the structure of the relationship between the city and County of Lambton.
Earlier in the year, Councillor Bird went to bat over she had some concerns over the long-term care homes. She received horrible treatment out there, and as we all know, we read the headlines, the province, the long-term care homes in Ontario are a mess, an absolute mess. And I'm not saying that ones in the county are, but I'm saying that she had some legitimate concerns. She brought them to the attention, asked for a third-party review, and they basically totally dished her. And looking back now, maybe they should have taken her a lot more seriously. But again, hindsight's 2020. But again, it's another example of the disrespect. I was there. I witnessed it when I was there as an alternate. And again, the free ride that they're getting is coming to an end. There's a very, very different relationship that's forming. And like I say, I know maybe these feelings have been boiling over for the last 30 years, but they're coming to a head. There's a new generation. There's a new crop of councillors that aren't so that I don't look at that place as a coffee club. I look at that place as a place where I would represent my constituents, and that's and act as such. That's for certain.
While a motion to withhold $10 million of Sarnia property taxes from the county was defeated in a 5-4 vote, it appears there will be some further discussions within the city moving forward on the relationship with Lambton County. Well, that's going to do it for our show tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Terry Doyle. We'll see you back here tomorrow.